you can say the possible questions which can be raised. I mean, naturally we will be discussing these concepts, and based on these concepts you can have these kind of questions, and these kind of questions will be asked during your examination, right? So I hope we are ready with the I mean, we are ready for the discussion. So let's partially start taking these concepts, right? So I wanted you to respond to these questions or these topics probably, right? So let me post again concepts. Okay. Right. So let's begin by understanding why we are discussing and what are the basic theme of this lecture, or probably what is the objective of this today's lecture. So today, because this is one of my area on which I'm working upon, I'm studying the books, or maybe working on this broad area which is called database systems, right? So whenever you want to understand what is database system, so naturally the first term which is appearing here is called data. So we have some conception, some understanding about these terms, and that's how we are using these terms called data on a daily basis. And we have this perception that we have some idea about this term data. So whenever we are using this term data, what is the first thing you have in your impression, right? So whenever I say, okay, I have data, okay, this is data, and this thing is in the form of data. So what is the first thing which basically appears in your mind whenever I say term data? So can you tell me what is the first thing you feel or you observe? Because we are going to just understand what kind of things data is representing, right?
Information.
Sir,
Yeah, any
any
other
image,
answer?
text, or anything is data.
Right? Okay. Any other impression? Any other student? They may. I mean, any student can raise their audio and share your answer, or maybe simply post on chat box also. So let me understand this. Okay, so if because whenever we are talking about data, or maybe information, or maybe anything, so the very first thing is very clear that we are trying to underline, or we are trying to understand. It is a form of detailing, right? So my name, your name is a form of data. My name, your pin number, your email address, or your roll number, in fact. So anything which is basically identifying is called data, or maybe called as a detail, right? So like in the real life, we used to identify, or we used to establish identity of any real world thing by using some term, by using some details. Like in our locality, we used to say, okay, what is your name, what is your email ID, what is your phone number, what is your address, what is your address actually. So all these things are basically, you can say, are the details, are the form of data. So I can say data is nothing but it is a form of detail. It is a detail which identifies, which outline, which basically establish the identity of any real world thing, any object, or any entity, or any individual which is existing in the real world. And whatever piece of detail we use to identify him, we can say it is a data, right? So one thing is very clear, that data is a basic form of detail. Data is a basic form of, you can say, the description about any real world entity. Any real world entity. I'm saying real world entity means real world object, anything which exists in the real world. You cannot have a data about anything which does not exist in the real world, right? Even for a particular transaction which we are going to conduct in ATM. So we used to go to the ATM machines, and we used to perform some kind of operation. So for those operations also, these banking services are maintaining, a list of transaction details, their transaction ID, their operation name and what a kind of operation you have done. So though this transaction does not exist physically in the real world, we used to maintain the detail of those transactions. But that transaction happened in the scope of real world where we actually exist. So the very basic definition of data is something you can say it is data. Data is a detail about the real world object, real world entity, anything which exists in the real world. So it is a basic form of detail, basic form of description about the real world objects. Like in case of societies, we used to describe one particular individual by his name, his maybe color, maybe hair color, or maybe skin tone, maybe his address, maybe his parents' name, his first name, last name, anything. So we used to utilize these details of one particular individual to call him, right, to refer him. Similarly, with this point of view, you can say if you want to design a system. Now, if I am as an individual faculty or teacher, if I wanted to capture the detail of each and every student of your class, I used to refer them, I used to call them by using their names, right? So your name is basically coming from your parents or parental side, but institute is having their own way of identifying a student, which is basically by using your roll number, right? So naturally we can derive some details, like your roll number is derived based on some mechanism, based on some approach, right? You have applied for this college for admission, and during this application or during this counseling time, or maybe during the admission process, you have submitted various detail about you, like your name, your first name, last name, parents name, your address detail, your phone number, email ID, all these maybe 20 or 30 details about yourself. But eventually institute has saved all these 20-30 details of yours and saved them or kept them in a server, and they have given you a roll number, right? So this roll number is basically another form of details, right? Because it is generated by a system. It is generated by a system based on these 20 or 30 details, right? So when we have these 20 or 30 details, and based on these 20-30 details of yours, they have generated one single piece of information, right? Now these 30 details are also indicating or identifying you, and this one single detail, which is roll number, is also identifying you as an individual. You are a physical, I mean, you are a real world entity, real world object. Now I can say these 20-30 details are data, because these are not processed. We have not applied any kind of processing. But to generate this single piece of information, piece of detail, we have applied some kind of processing, right? You have submitted these 20 details into the admission system, into the admission management or counseling management system, and we have generated this one single, very small abstract form of detail. It can be a roll number, or it can be a registration number also. So this is the second form of detail is called information. These 20 details are 20 different details. Your roll number, your actually your name, first name, last name, parents name, all these 30 details are not processed. They are individually available, right? They are not processed, they are not related. Naturally they are indicating towards you, they are identifying you, but they are not generated through some kind of processing. They have just attached to you. So these 30 details are, or you can say, refer the basic form of details, basic form of descriptions of you. And based on these 30 details, we have generated this single small size details about you. So we are referring this is a information, this as an information, right? So here we are applying, or maybe to generate information from this data, we are generating this part of this size of detailing, and basically we are we are applying a kind of abstraction. So abstraction means you are hiding, or you are basically not exposing these details. You're not exposing these details, 3 details, right? But you're simply deriving one simple brief size of detail to indicate some individual, right? So whenever someone says what is data, so data is basically unprocessed, you can say unprocessed detail about a real world object, and information is a processed detail, right? And so once we have applied processing, this size of detailing becomes a simple size of detail. right? So that's why actually whenever we say data information, data cannot be information, or information, yes, information can be a data with something addition to it, right? So these two terms are very, meaning they are closely related, but they are not the same. You cannot use term information to describe data. So whenever this question is raised to you that what is data, you cannot say data is information, right? Data is not information. Data cannot be information actually, right? Because data is something which is not processed, which is not related, which is available in a different ways, different types, right? But when we apply some kind of processing on this set of details which are data, you can derive a smaller size of detail, and this smaller size of detail can be referred as a information. So the typical example of information is your roll number, your PAN number, your Aadhaar number, your passport number, or maybe your any unique ID. So that is something important here to understand. So whenever we are deriving information, now we have reached to the second stage, from data to information. Now in the second stage, we are having some system to generate information from the data. So we are supplying some details on the form of data, and now we are generating information. So suppose you can have a system which generates the Aadhaar number, which generates the passport number. So all these up systems you can say are or of nature information processing, because they are generating information output, right? So input for our information system is the data. So we are feeding data to the system, and the system is generating information like passport number, Aadhaar number, or any unique number. Now you have to understand one common nature, one common feature between all these unique IDs. So as an individual citizen, we have these IDs like, you can have roll number also. So we have like passport number, Aadhaar number, and various identifier or unique ID. So you can have this idea that each and every unique ID is having two things common. First, each and every ID is having some, validity limit, that your license number is valid for 25 years, your Aadhaar ID is valid for 60 years, uh, your passport may be valid for 15 years, something like that. That is one thing. So it is having some time limit, it is having some temporal limit. That is first nature, that is first property. Second property is each and every information will have some geographical limitation also. Your roll number is valid for it is valid only within institute. You cannot use your roll number, your institute roll number to identify yourself in the airports, right? So your roll number is valid within this institute boundary, within this institute geographical location. Similarly, your passport is valid for maybe for different countries, but your Aadhaar card is it is identifiable or valid within country only. So wherever we are generating information, so the point which I want to make here is that whenever we want to generate, or whenever we want to have an information, it will have these two limitations. You cannot have any information which is having infinite geographical importance and infinite time limitations. It cannot have. So this is happening because we are generating new detail in the form of information by using these kind of data inputs, right? So this detail, which is in the form of information, is naturally smaller. It will have these two features, time and location limitation. It cannot go beyond these two limits, right? So you can straight away say, whenever someone raise, okay, what is information, you can say information is a processed data. It is processed data. Processed data, it means it will have some limit. So these limits are basically sometimes called as a meaning also. So it is often referred as, whenever say what is information, you can say information is a processed data with some meaning, some limitations, right? So information is the second stage of detail. In the internet, you are having various details available about n number of things or infinite number of things. So you can easily identify if like your website address, your IP address, it is a kind of information, because it is representing to some specific source located on some specific server, and related to some real life entity or real life website, something like that, right? So that is the second stage. After this data to information, now third stage is called knowledge. So knowledge is something very important form of detailing about anything, right? Which we can utilize, which we can use for some purpose, right? So the very typical example of knowledge is you can say in these days actually we are hearing a lot about machine learning things, machine learning and AI based systems. So machine learning is naturally eventually it will be an algorithm, right? So any machine learning algorithm which has a capacity to do some task, which is having a capacity to perform a task which is supposed to perform by a human individual. So wherever we have this kind of algorithm, machine learning algorithm, which can perform a task, we can claim that here we have got a machine or algorithm which can perform human task, and it will have some knowledge into it. So knowledge means it is a capacity. It is a capacity or capability to perform some task. That's it. So that's why in modern time we have got various AI based systems. They are having this capacity to perform human tasks with some kind of accuracy. So naturally you can have algorithm to sort n numbers, right? That is the basic algorithm you can have. But if you have an algorithm, if you have an algorithm of sorting which can decide that okay, for each different set of inputs, each can decide that out of these different sorting approaches, this particular sorting algorithm is very appropriate, right? So if you have that kind of algorithm which can decide that which sorting approach is suitable for which kind of input sequence, so here, this algorithm is having this capability of decision making, making a choice of best of choice. So there we can say, okay, this algorithm or this program is having some knowledge. It is having some knowledge. Naturally, to make this algorithm this way, to that much capable, you will be applying some kind of information into it, not data, right? We are feeding some kind of information, some details like to information into this system, and based on this training we can have this kind of capability in the algorithm, right? So we have three stages. So you can say broadly in the internet whatever details are available. So on daily basis, we used to go to the search system. We used to perform some searches, some scrolling on some browsing on the information on social media platforms and search system and other platform also. So if you observe carefully, you can easily identify that this detail is in the form of data. This detail in this website is in the form of information, and this detail is in the form of knowledge. So if typically if you take the example of social media platform like Twitter, you can take. So any post which we contribute, any post which we make in our profile is in the form of data, right? We are simply typing a text and submitting in the Twitter platform in our profiles. Once we post this text message into the social media platform, naturally, Twitter platform is having some kind of computing setup. They will extract some details from your tweet post and utilize it for certain purpose, right? So whatever we are posting as a user in the uh, Twitter profile or platform is in the form of data, and once it is posted in the Twitter profile or in the Twitter platform, the Twitter platform utilizes this user post to achieve some trends. These trends are nothing but these trends top trending, or sometimes we used to say, okay, which is trending thing, so hashtag something something. So these hashtag things are nothing but it is a form of information, because these trend topics or trending topics in the Twitter are derived by exploiting the different posts from the different users globally, right? So once we have got these 5 or 6 or 10 trending topics, we can utilize these trending topics for some decision making, right? So we can say these trending topics are nothing but it is the information. Now we can use these informations, these trending topics to make some decision, right? That's what that is how the political parties are doing. They used to consume these trending topics to make decisions, right? Or maybe reverse way also. They are going to, sometimes it is happening that some set of peoples are going to, so some change the trending of the topics. So suppose some hashtag is trending in the eighth position, they used to push more tweets on that particular hashtag and make it to the top two or top one, something like that. So it is vice versa also. So the point here I wanted to make is that these trending, so user posts are basically in the form data, and now based on these user posts or tweets, they are deriving these trending topics. These trending topics are in the form of information because they are derived by exploiting these millions of tweets. And once we derive, or once we got these top 10 or top 20 trending topics, we can make or utilize them in as a decision making for some purpose, right? So there are various examples of for understanding this hierarchy of data to information, information to knowledge, right? So this is the basic, you can say the basic idea or basic understanding of these concepts called data, information, and knowledge. Now we have to understand the concept data because that is our focus, right? So data is the first level, or first, the basic level of detail about anything. So the very first question here is basically why data is important. So here you can say in modern time, uh, anything which we are utilizing to make decisions, to perform tasks, is becoming very important. Like in the case of Twitter also, it is very important to have, uh, you know. So this is how the different companies, different political parties are working. Like they are consuming the, citizens tweets, so to make some their decisions, or maybe vice versa also. So anything which we are generating, so if you realize that on daily basis we are contributing some form of data to some form, some platform, like your smartwatches which are capturing your temperature, like your Facebook or Twitter profile. Your data on their profile, your profiles are being utilized by or exploited by different individuals, different companies for their different purpose. We are not much aware about these things, that our data which is available in the profile, which we are posting on daily basis, or maybe we are not aware about that, but these data, these details are being continuously utilized by some other organizations, right? And it begins from your phone number itself. So in the maybe previous maybe last 10 to 8 to 10 years back, we used to very concerned about that. Okay, who are sharing our phone numbers? We are getting calls from different individuals, different customer cares. So they used to share that phone number those times, maybe 8 years back. But now your personal information, like your photos, your post, your likings, all these things are becoming very important. Even your simple click on the share button is considered as a data, and it is being exploited or being utilized by some different companies for their specific purpose, right? So my question is still open, basically, why data is important? Because data is basically nothing. It is the interpretation of your behavior, right? So initially we are not concerned about that what are the activities we are doing on the internet, what are the different activities we are doing on our social media platforms. Now you can carefully see, if you perform anything on social media, it is being used by some way, directly or indirectly, by these platforms, right? So all the activities of yours on the social media, all your activities on the Google search, so anything which you perform on these systems is being captured, continuously being captured, and it is being used by these system for some different purposes, right? So why data is important? Because data reflects the human behavior, your choices, your actions, your preferences on the, like in retail in the retail platforms like Flipkart or Amazon. You are purchasing something, so by this they have the idea about your preferences on clothes, preferences or anything. So each and every action, whatever action we are performing or we doing on different platforms, is being captured and being utilized, maybe for the betterment of service, maybe for the betterment of their operations also. Like in the very typical example in Google search, Google search system is observing your typed query and your search behavior to improve your result as well as they are utilizing the different keywords you are posting for improving the search results for the maybe for the Indian users, something like that. So each and every service is utilizing user behavior, and this user behavior is basically available in the data which we are performing in the systems. So your action, your preferences, your contributions are available into these systems, and these systems are carefully observing these things, maintaining these things for their betterment of their purpose, right? So that is partially, I think you are clear about also. Now, based on these observations, which we have discussed in the last 10 minutes, you can, I think, now note down that what are the different sources to generate the data, right? One point we have make that, okay, as a user also we are contributing a lot of data to the different platforms. Other than a user, you can identify the different sources of systems or sources where data is generated, right? So like one typical example I can give you here, you might have an idea about this satellites. These satellites which are, I mean, floating in the sky on the different coordinates, they are generating data. So they are generating sensor data and sending to the some kind of servers. So we are getting continuously some information, some details from the satellites. So along with the user, you can claim that, okay, these sensors are something as a source, they are generating data. Similarly, you can have this BSE Sensex. So in the Sensex, they are generating a lot of trading data. So similarly, you can list down all these sources which are generating some form of data, right? So you can see here that different sources are generating different type of data, right? So like in our case, the very first case is like sensor data. Maybe it is a weather forecasting sensor satellite which is sending the temperature data of a particular location of a particular time. So we are getting continuously the detail about the temperature variation on a particular location, particular geographical location, and we are keeping these details about weather into the server, and we are analyzing or we are predicting the possible temperature change in the next week, something like that. Similarly, with the Sensex data, we are getting the Sensex information continuously streaming to our systems, and we are making some kind of trading decisions, something like that. So we have various sources to generate data, and each and every source is generating different kind of data. Right now, different kind of data means the data we have talked about is a basic detail, basic form of detail, and this detail is captured in some way, right? Sometimes it is captured in the text form, like your name, all these things. Sometimes it is captured in the form of image also. So we are capturing an image of particular location, particular individual. It is also it is also a basic form of details, right? Sometimes it is in the form of video, sometimes it is in the form of audio also. So these all are details, these all are, you can refer as a data, right? So basically we have broadly three types of data, you can say. So whatever data is available in the world, whatever details is in the form of data available, it is broadly categorized into three types. The first type is called unstructured. Unstructured is basically, so if you categorize this into the percentage, so I can claim that in this current time, whatever data we are having in the internet, it is around 96% of data which is in the net form of unstructured. So 96% of data available in the internet is in the form of unstructured. So all these details, like your photo, audio, or your text data, or you may various things are falling into this category called unstructured, right? Because each and every detail which we captured in these data media are not in the structured manner, available in the structured manner, right? So suppose you are having this media or maybe photo of something else, some real world object. To store this data, store this image, you need to apply some kind of processing, and then you can store it, right? So if you are having any data which need pre-processing, some kind of processing before storing it, you can say this is a unstructured data. That's why you're processing it, so that you can store it. So to store, suppose you are having a data for which you need a processing before storing it to the systems, that data can be referred as a unstructured data, right? So just next extreme, so just opposite of this unstructured, we have structured data. So structured data is something which can be directly stored, right? You do not need to apply any kind of pre-processing. You do not need to apply any kind of processing. You can directly store it into the systems. So we have two extremes, unstructured, structured, and between there have semi-structured. So semi-structured, the typical example of semi-structured data is a HTML pages. So any data which is having mix of both. For some portion it is structured, some portion it is unstructured. So this HTML websites, HTML code is a typical example of semi-structured. So we have broadly these two data types, right? Now, after this term called data, information, and knowledge, we have got three data types, not data types, types of data actually. So we have got three types of data, and we are saying 96% of data is of nature unstructured, and it is evolving, it is expanding, it is being added on daily basis, hourly basis, or even minute basis also. So that's why we are hearing this term called big data, right? So you can have this idea big data. So big data is nothing but it is not a different type of data. Data, still we are having the three basic types of data, right? We have unstructured, semi-structured, and structured. And out of these three types, we are saying that unstructured data is expanding. It is being added on hourly basis by different source of data. And when we say it is expanding, or it is in the scale which will be difficult to manage, right? So sometimes, like in the initial days, we are having this Gmail service, Google Gmail service, right? Mailing services. So initially we are not having any file beyond 15 MB. Nowadays we are able to generate a file of 15 MB, 16 MB, or maybe 300 MB. Now the same Gmail service is not able to send this particular file which is of more than 15 MB or maybe 25 MB. So that's why we need to have this service called Google Drive. So that's why it is becoming, so same data is now in the different scale, maybe in the size, it is have different scale. Now we are not able to manage this file on the basic applications. So big data is nothing. It is a concept. It is a term. So big means there is a prefix called big. So big means it can be big in the form of any dimension. So a data can have various dimensions, like a data size, a data, the types of data itself, that in a single source we have these three types: semi-structured, structured, and unstructured. So if you are managing a data which includes all these three forms, this type itself is the problem. So you can say, along with volume of data can be a challenge, right? Then its veracity means you can have these three types. Then its velocity means the speed or the rate which data is receiving to your systems. That is also a challenge, right? So if you have your laptop, and in this laptop, suppose I can connect satellites, these satellites, these weather satellites. So my system cannot handle the incoming rate of data. Your system cannot manage the speed or the rate which data is coming to this system. So that might be a case that my laptop got crashed also. So this incoming, the rate of velocity of the data itself is a big issue, right? So nowadays we are having various applications, various machines which are generating the data in in the very high velocity. So that's also a challenge. So you are having application 10 years back also now, but now we are having this improved systems. So these traditional systems are generating these traditional data with the higher dimensions, like high velocity, high volume, high veracity. There are various dimensions of a data. So these kind of data now becomes the big data thing. So we have added these same dimension on the data with the improved label. So these same data is referred now as a big data thing. So big data is not a new thing. You can have this basic idea about this thing, that we have added, or maybe the improved version of systems or hardwares are able to generate the same data on the same application with higher dimensions, right? तो कुछ एप्लीकेशन ऐसे हो सकते हैं जहां पर बहुत हैवी डेटा जनरेट कर रहा है, वही एप्लीकेशन वही डेटा टाइप का डेटा. You have a different application which is generating the satellite data, and this same satellite is generating these data with the high velocity also. So right, so it is not a new thing, it is a traditional thing, but it is has now having a different dimensions, different level of dimensions on it, right? So with this you can go, okay, so out of these different dimension of data which is making it as a big data, you can understand that, okay, velocity, volume is something which we can manage by having the different size of storage devices. Veracity is also manageable, you can have different setup or systems to store different types of data, different type of data. Now veracity is handled, this you can say, this volume is also handled, velocity is also handled. I think you can manage the velocity of data. There are other dimensions being added in the recent years, so you can, for that, for those dimensions you can go into the internet and explore that what are the different dimensions of big data, and out of these dimensions which is which is one which is difficult to manage, right? So there are various v's, so like velocity, volume, and veracity, there are various v's. Other than these three, you can go to the internet and explore that which v is difficult to manage, right? So you need to understand the property first, then you need to understand how to handle this property, right? Like three properties we have discussed: velocity, volume, and veracity, and these three dimensions are having their nature, and we can handle it. Similarly, other dimensions have been explored in the recent years based on the different applications, and now we are trying to understand that how to handle this dimension of data, right? So now, based on this discussion, we can go for the next question, which says, what is the role of database system? Now, let me try to understand what is the term called database and what is the term called database system. So we have got data. So naturally, data will be having different natures. It can be update semi-structured, unstructured, or structured. So database is something which you can say it is a platform. It is a structured or organized platform which will store the data, right? We have got data, we have got details about any real world object. Now you need to store these details into some platform, into some organized structure, right? So that is purely referred as a database system. So database system is basically a complete system. So whenever I say system term, because we are the students of computer engineering or computer science background, we are having a kind of perception about this term called system. So whenever I say system, it will involve three entities: input, output, and there in between there will be some processing part. So we are saying database is nothing but it is a structured, or maybe say you can say the organization to organize the data. Maybe you can say it is a you can say the concept, or it is a the concept or methodology through which you can refer this is okay. For storing data we have this arrangement. So you can say database is nothing but it is a arrangement to store the data, to manage the data. Now I am saying database system, it means it will have some processing part in between, it will have some input and output. So if I say database system, it means it will be having some kind of arrangements to store the data, to process it, and to generate something. So suppose we are sending some query, some commands to the database system, it will generate some response to your query, right? So whenever I say a database system, means it is a system which will help to manage and to retrieve the data, right? So database system is a system which will manage, which will manage, which will retrieve the data or data request by the user, right? That's a very simple and plain definition. Now we are saying, okay, we have data and we have database system on which we can perform some queries. Now naturally you should be having this idea that whenever we are having a database system and we are expecting that there will be some queries on the data by the users, it means we will have some users. So for a database system we could have probably three broad types of user, right? So if you take an analogy of this banking system, like we are having different banking system, like SBI system, we are having banking systems. So if you can have this analogy clearly, for the SBI system, we are a simple user. We are going to ATMs, we are going to our net banking profile and going to perform some operations like amount transfer, like adding some beneficiary, performing some quick transfer, something like that. So we are the simple user to this banking system. There are some users on the same banking system which are existing in the banks, like bank PO and all those. So those are called those type of user who are having more privilege access on these accounts, are considered as a advanced operator, or maybe you can say them as a programmer user, programmer or parametric. So they are having higher privilege to perform different higher operations, right? So it might be the case कि जो बैंक में PO बैठे हैं, he can have access in all these account numbers which are available in that particular bank. But a simple user is having access only to perform on their own accounts. That too not all, राइट जैसे भी आप अपने नेट प्रोफाइल में जाएंगे नेट बैंकिंग में, तो उसमें आप जो भी ऑप्शंस अवेलेबल है सब आप नहीं कर सकते हैं स्टैंड अलोन. You need to ask for some permission, or you need to submit some operation to the some banks, then only you can complete that operations, right? So simple user is having few portion on the few part, and he is able to perform some operations. But there is a second type of user which we are referring as a bank PO. Maybe it is called as a programmer, or maybe it is called parametric user. He can perform more privilege operations on the database, right? And there is third user on any type of data, which is called database administrator, DBA. So DBA is the highest form of user or on any database. DBA can perform each and every operation, each and everything. So you can say DBA is the creator of the database. He is the destroyer of it. So you can say that DBA is the god of particular database, because he can perform each and every operation on each and every part of data, right? So if you are having a database, if there is a DBA person who is sitting on the top of SBI system, he can perform anything on particular data values, right? So broadly, for any database, also for any database which you are assuming, which you can understand, we could have these three broad types of user, right? So after this broad classification of user, you can understand that for IRCTC, what are the different types of users. So like in the Windows, so if you go to the railway stations, there are individuals who are sitting just back of the window. They're got this privilege to book any ticket, or got any cancellation request, or perform these operations on say you can feel that privilege that they are having. But in the second side, on the as a user, we are struggling to perform some operations. So based on the user label, you can have privilege, you can have capability to perform operations, right? So that is how. So whenever you are going to, so in future also, whenever you are planning to design a system, design a whole system, information system or management system, whenever we will be working to design the database part, you should be taking care of these different users, right? Because database system or any system will be built for different type of users. So it is very important to understand what are the different types of user we will have possibly. Now, after this, you can now understand the next question, which is uh, what are the different sources of big data, right? So broadly, we have touched upon the various questions, like what are the different types of user on data, what are the different sources of data, and what are the different dimensions of data which makes it the big data. Now I can see that we have touched upon all the possible concepts also. Oh yes, the last part, which is called DBMS system. Now we have database system. Now after that, we have got this DBMS system, database management system, right? So, and why do we need to have this DBMS system? When we say, okay, database is already a system which can manage the data as well as data request on the database. So why do we need to have DBMS system, right? One thing I wanted to point out here, that before the evolution of these DBMS system, we do not have these websites. We do not have access of anything which is kept in the different country, right? So DBMS is something which makes it possible to have access on any data which is kept in the different country or different geographical location globally, right? So DBMS is, again, it is as name suggests, that it is a database management system, management software. So it will provide this kind of extra feature, right? so you can access data remotely efficiently, right? So it is nothing but it is a collection of software. It is a collection of softwares, or you can see it is collection of systems which will improve your privilege on the database system, right? So you can say if you have a database broadly, you can add some kind of privilege access on the database by having DBMS system. So you might have heard about the different DBMS systems or DBMS softwares called Oracle 9i, Oracle 10i, something like that. So there are various companies, various organizations who are developing these DBMS softwares. So if I count it precisely, there are around 130 or 135 DBMS softwares are available, and out of these 135, one of the important, or one of the potentially used, is called Oracle product. So Oracle is having their DBMS called Oracle itself, so it is having different versions also. So nowadays it is, I think, Oracle maybe 12G, something like that. So they are having different versions of Oracle DBMS software. Similarly, IBM is having IBM DB2, something like that. So each and every, I mean, so-called established companies are having their own DBMS software, right? Because it is being used by different applications. Like in our case, for institute website, we are having some SQL Server also. So like in our case, we are having this institute website. In the backend of this system, in the backend of the your website, institute website, we are having Windows Server, SQL Server, something like that. So to manage that backend, so to manage the database aspect, right? Because each and every system, computer system, is having two aspects, front end and back end. So back end is probably referred as a database system. So with this, I'm going to close this discussion. If you are having any specific query here, you can raise your question here. So I'm waiting for your questions. Yes, so if anyone is having any question, you can let me know. So we have got 2 minutes probably. Yes, anyone?
सर
Yes, please.
सर जो MySQL होता है वो मतलब Oracle MySQL पे वर्क करते हैं या दोनों अलग-अलग होते हैं?
Oracle is a software, actually, DBMS software. MySQL is a editor. It provides a platform to perform these programmings, database programmings, right? So MySQL is an editor, or it is a software which provides you to perform some execution on the database, right?
Okay, sir.
Yes. Any question we have? So you can carefully note down, or I will be posting these questions on the Google Classroom also. So these questions and the topics, along with it, I will be posting a short note. I mean, I have prepared a short note for your reference only. So let me, if it is open, let me share. Okay, it is not open. So I will be posting a short self note kind of thing. So this is what I am saying. So I will be sharing these notes to you. So this will make these things which we have discussed little easier to you. You can have some idea that, okay, what are the things we have discussed during the class. So here in the basically this particular diagram, figure 1 is showing you the different position. So you can see here, this database system is placed in the outer boundary. Within this database system, we have placed this DBMS software. So this DBMS software will help you to achieve something. But DBMS database system is a higher or broad thing. Now, if you open this DBMS software, this diagram, figure number 2, is showing what are the different possible components within a DBMS software. So you can see here in the top, if you see, let me slightly zoom it. So you can see here we are placing users, because this is a DBMS. Now on each DBMS we will be having some users, right? So if you see here, we will having this DBA team, casual user, programmer user, and parametric users, right? So with this, actually I'm getting calls from your classmates from ITA. So let me close this lecture here, and I will be